Welcome to A Drink of Wisdom with Jay Wise. I'm your host, Cody Ward. Thank you for spending some of your time with us tonight. As a reminder to all our listeners, besides being on all your favorite podcast platforms, A Drink of Wisdom is also on YouTube, with each show segment available. Head on over, and if you like what you hear, well, we would appreciate your subscription. What's going on, man? Drink's out again tonight, so it's just going to be you and me. We'll hope to have him back on Friday. How's it going?
Yep, Drink's out like Damian Lillard's out in the Blazers-Lakers series. But yeah, expect him back Fridays, day-to-day right now. We'll get him back eventually, full-time. Anyway, a lot to get into. Let's go do it.
Let's do it, man. In episode 88, the process is buffering, the Nuggets are struggling, and we preview the Raptors-Celtics Eastern Conference semifinal matchup. But we begin tonight in the NFL with a look at the Earl Thomas situation. Over the weekend, the seven-time Pro Bowler was released for, quote, conduct detrimental to the team following a fight with teammate safety Chuck Clark at a Friday practice. The move was initially shocking and seemed to really not fit the altercation. However, since then, more light has been cast on the rocky relationship between Thomas and the Ravens since his signing of a 4-year, $55 million deal last year. The Ravens will move on with an unproven group of guys to replace him while Thomas awaits a new job offer. So, Jay, did the Ravens make the right call here, all things considered, and where might he wind up?
Well, on the surface, and this is why I brought up the really the only situation I could look back to where Earl Thomas perhaps engaged in some less than desirable conduct was when he got hurt fairly early in the season, in his last season in Seattle, and was given the bird to his whole bench. Outside of that, I really haven't known of him to be a locker room issue kind of guy. But then, this happens. And now, based on what I've read, this was not an isolated incident. And we gotta be honest about this. Earl Thomas is an elite talent. 7 Pro Bowls in 10 years, made three consecutive All-Pro teams from 2012 to 2014. You don't dump guys for one incident that are that talented. I mean, just think about it. And I haven't referenced his name, and it seems like a calendar year now, and it's been by design, by the way. But think about all the nonsense Antonio Brown had to engage in before the Raiders said get out. These are ultra talented guys. You don't dump them for just one issue. If this was the first kind of issue that Earl Thomas had engaged in, was being a part of the Ravens, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. I mean, they would have figured it out. But based on what I've read, he's missed, a handful of meetings, been late or missed a bunch of meetings. Based on a CBS Sports report, a source said Earl Thomas was easily now the most disliked guy in that locker room. Wow. I mean, that's just all you can think of is wow when you read something like that. And although he made the Pro Bowl for them last season, there seemed to be within the locker room the belief that some of his skills they're eroding to some degree. Too many blown coverages, missed tackles, the lack of effort. The Nick Chubb 80-some yard touchdown, he was not hustling on that play. And who can ever forget the Derrick Henry play in the playoffs when he turned Earl Thomas into a lead blocker?
I heard the Titans would have signed him at fullback, so that might not be a new job offer for him for his lead blocking ability.
And based on what I've read, Chuck Clark was the other safety involved in the altercation that ended up taking a punch. And based on what I've gathered, Chuck Clark is beloved within that locker room. And it was one of those things where all the players, or a vast majority of the players, got together and said, "Hey, look, we'd rather get this guy out of here." And I think the Ravens players, the other players, deserve credit for that, banding together and saying, "Hey, look, this guy don't fit. I mean, talented or not, we can do this thing without him." And I really think, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think this changes the Ravens' outlook all that much. I really don't. I know you have Chuck Clark. They have a 6th-round rookie from 2018 that they like. I'm missing his name right now. But I've also read they're exploring the possibility of longtime corner Jimmy Smith maybe rotating in at safety, because we know Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey. So I think their secondary will be fine, and I think their defense as a whole will be fine. Financially, it's a big hit. And I know they're going to seek to void his $10 million salary for this season. And Earl Thomas, he's going to fight that. And we don't know how that's going to play out. But also give credit to the general manager, Eric DaCosta, for, taking a chance on this guy, because like you said, like we said, great talent, elite level player at the safety position. But also recognizing, hey, this ain't what we signed up for. Just too much cutting up. And it's one of those things where it's not surprising when your skills start to erode a little bit, as what I've read, that's what these players believe. I mean, you got to look, people are going to put up with a certain amount of nonsense up to a point if your talent offsets it. I guess that's not the case anymore for Earl Thomas.
Yeah, that I think that's some of the idea here and the impetus. You're absolutely right. The first thing you look at is it seemed like the Ravens as a team were ready to move on from him after this incident. It was kind of like the straw on the camel's back. You mentioned there was a couple of missed team meetings. There was a story where he pressured, I think, an offensive lineman to play through a knee injury or something. And it was Brandon Williams. I was a nose tackle Brandon Williams. He had pressured the guy to play through a knee injury for a game that they had where I think they wound up losing that game. And the thing is, I think when you look at teams like the Ravens or any really teams that are successful in the NFL, your top tier teams, they're often led in the locker room by the players. The players are really tight knit. You get these really good locker rooms with great chemistry, and the guys really forge this sort of brotherly bond with each other. And we have a guy like Earl Thomas who comes in and he's a talent, he's good, but he's missing these meetings and he doesn't seem to always be with the team. And it's separated from Sundays. We're talking about Monday through Saturday with a lot of this stuff, and that kind of stuff matters. I mean, we've both been part of an organization where that, if there's one person not doing what they need to be doing, it kind of makes you resent them a little bit, when everyone else is kind of pulling their weight and you're the guy kind of messing around, flopping off. And you're right, to a point, guys like Earl Thomas can get away with it. Your Antonio Browns of the world and such. I mean, we remember how much crap he was getting away with even back in Pittsburgh. But it was surprising that the Ravens did this until we found out some of the other, conduct that had happened. As far as his abilities go, I think that when we look at the differences in the Ravens defense versus what he played with in Seattle, two things come to mind. Number one, the Ravens have a pretty complex scheme. Their defense is pretty big brain. There's a lot of things to know and a lot of places you need to be in the right time. Whereas Seattle, they played that real simple cover three. Earl Thomas knew what he had to do. And the Seattle Seahawks, especially on that defense, had very strong player leadership with guys like Cam Chancellor and Bobby Wagner. They were always the guys there to tell him and keep him in line. That's where he played for 9 years. So he didn't really need a lot of coaching. It was just, I know what I'm doing. I'm on autopilot. I can fly around and do what I got to do because I don't have to worry about the details. Whereas in the Ravens defense, he probably needed a lot more coaching, and he seems like someone that's not super open to that. It feels, if another player calls him out and he decks him over it, I mean, there's a mutual lack of respect there on both sides of the equation. And that's the kind of thing you just can't have. I mean, would Earl Thomas have decked Cam Chancellor if he called him out in a practice? No, he wouldn't have done that. Clearly, Earl Thomas does not respect Chuck Clark. And when the team saw that, they said, well, no, we're not having this. And I think when the players told the coaches and management, hey, we don't want this. This isn't what we're signed up for. The management was like, all right, cool. He's out. See ya. So, and to cut a player like Earl Thomas in late August where you really can't replace him anymore. There's no, we'll go on the free agent market in March and get what we need. Like, no, it's long. That scrap pile has been picked clean and then some,
And
You're
to that point, not just I touched on the GM, but you brought up the players very well. But I think organizationally, Baltimore is very, very structurally sound from top to bottom. Because as well as I do, there are other organizations that there would be some glitch. And it could, a lot of times, I think it's ownership will butt in and say, no, we can't lose that guy. He's too good. But they don't necessarily know all the reasons and haven't seen the issues that player may be causing. But we know about the players. John Harbaugh, exceptional coach, exceptional leader. Got a good GM. We know ownership ain't a problem there. So, and they're comfortable enough. The Ravens are successful. They're going to be successful with or without Earl Thomas. Their success won't be defined by just off that one player.
Yep.
So I think that's another thing that they can be comfortable with because they're just that sound as an organization.
Yeah, the Patriots model. No matter who the Patriots have lost in the last 15, 20 years, the machine relentlessly marched on. They never tied themselves to their worth of a player. I mean, if Earl Thomas played here in Jacksonville, he could take a dump in the stadium pool, and we wouldn't cut him. I mean, we can't afford it. We don't have a choice. Whereas the Ravens, like you said, the Ravens are confident enough where, hey, man, you can get lost. We'll figure it out without you. And like you said, that's just what they're going to do. Real quick, where do you think he winds up? I am thinking at the top of the list would probably be Atlanta. I think schematically they run a lot of single high stuff. He can just sit back there, do what he's got to do. They don't have a lot of talent at that position, so he'd be an upgrade talent-wise. And I think he's going to have to go somewhere where he knows the coaches to a degree. There's got to be some history because every team's going to think, oh, well, we can get him. He's different. He'll be different on our team. But, y'all, he's coming from the Ravens. Like you just said, one of the most structurally sound organizations. If he didn't fit in Baltimore, buyer beware. But what do you think?
They're very interesting because that's a Dan Quinn connection thing. Although I don't know how
he's there for now. So
I don't know.
For the time being.
that would
game
look
6
good
maybe not, but
that would look good for maybe 1 year. But I don't.
Yeah.
I think Dan Quinn's kind of sitting there on borrowed time unless they get things figured out very quickly. Dallas just seems so easy. I don't know. Just Earl Thomas went to Texas. There was the thing. What was it? Was it Earl Thomas that said, "Come get me," or it might have been the injury, and he was saying, "Yeah, I'm trying to get in the Cowboys locker room." Something weird. It just feels like a Cowboys move. It really does. We know Jerry Jones is all about the splash, getting those headlines, and the Cowboys don't care about player conduct. I mean, we've seen this. We've seen this for years now. Can we just say that he don't care about player conduct? So I think the Cowboys is a really obvious move. I don't know if it happens. I think I will say this: whoever he goes to, I think if you're Earl Thomas, you got to temper your expectations on your next contract. I don't think you're not getting 4 years, $55 million after you pull this.
And that was it was a lukewarm market the first time. When he was signed that last big contract, he had just turned 30, and it was still it took a while. Remember, so. Yep. Oh yeah, he's going to take a hefty discount this time.
So. Dallas. I can see Dallas, but Atlanta's interesting as well.